Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to the author of The Reluctant Wizard. Her name is Amanda Warne, and she is definitely into magic. From Sydney, Australia by Skype. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Amanda, this book was great. It really drew me in, like the Harry Potter series did. It had a lot of magic, completely different mindset from the Harry Potter series, and magic worked in a different way. So how did you come up with the concept and the Wizarding School?
Well, I was actually in the middle of writing Concealed Power with my co-writer, and I had this little boy just keep popping into my head. It's like, I need to explore this world. So I was trying to write both books at once, and I was half in it, half not, and I just let it evolve on its own. So I just allow my stories to dictate what they should be, because every time I decide what needs to go into a story, the characters remind me like, no, this is our story, and change it. So I just allow Eli to explore a world that it seems to be a lot more complex than he realizes. And I just pulled in everything that I absolutely love about our world. Whether it's politics or the human experience, no matter what it is, it kind of all got thrown into there like a big cooking pot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to write?
So that one I started little bits and pieces, but overall probably about 13 months. I'm into book 2 at the moment, and I'm trying to make that a quicker process. So I'm very excited to get it finished.
Oh, that's great. How many books will be in the series?
This is the only series I've decided that I'm not going to put a number on it, only because the world is so massive, and I just don't want to say, right, I'm going to write 3 books and then find out the story needs 5 books. So I'm allowing the story to tell me how long it needs to be.
Well, I love the way that the story plays out. I understand how it's Ellie, right? Eli?
Eli, yes, it's Eli.
So Eli, I love the way that his character develops, and you really start to understand the title of the book, The Reluctant Wizard.
Yeah. Yeah, it works right in there, doesn't it?
I know, but it seems like, so there's parts of the story that bring you to this wizarding school in this place, and you don't know how much time has passed. And you've only seen certain milestones along the way. It's really disjarring, but it was great how you made it disjarring for us, making us empathize with what the character was going through.
Yeah, well, time is a huge theme in the book, and I always love the perception that we can speed up time and slow down time in our lives, because when you're having a great day, how quick does that day go? And then when you're having a real boring day, it just kind of like drags out. So I'm always fascinated about perception and the human experience around perception. So I had to put time in there because I think we underestimate time. So that kind of got linked in as well.
There's definitely a lot of time issues in the book. And it was really drawn out well. And I love the whole speculative part of the story. and the different
Yeah.
approaches that you take. Um, I was really surprised at points when people turned on him, though. I was really disappointed in
Yeah.
them. I was like, really?
I know, and I think it comes down to, like, everybody has their own motivations. You've got people who are driven by their own drives. So when Eli, as a child, is faced with all these people, they don't come across as face value. They don't, they've got their own agendas, their own drives, and Eli is only a child. He's not going to know that. So we are seeing the world through his perception, as well as, he's seeing these characters, and it's just like any child in this world. We think they're great because they're nice to us. So at what point do we get to see their own drives and their own motivations? And then you go, oh, now that person makes sense.
That's true. And you had a different perspective about learning magic versus
Yeah.
growing into it or growing your own brand of magic. How did that come about?
I think it was more the journey of looking within. We constantly, like, I do this with my children. I constantly catch myself with, oh, let's go and learn this, and let's go and do this, and I'm thinking, hold on, I've got all these amazing strengths. Why do I have to keep going out and learning? So, it's kind of my way of saying to children, we are this huge being in ourselves, and that we are full of these wonderful talents and interests. We can look within and lean on those and really enjoy who we are internally before we go out and take on other things. So at the same time, like, funny enough, I haven't read Harry Potter, even though a lot of people pull that one in, but I've watched the movie and I was really surprised that you could go and learn things and capture things, but at the same time, not everybody could do it. So I thought, well, because then you've got your muggles and the magic people, I turned that thinking off. I thought, if I'm not going to have a currency in the world, what would replace a currency? And so a magic system that everybody can have as an innate ability, we can grow that. So it was really fascinating to see how that would play out like a domino effect throughout the world.
So, as a mother, how many children do you have, and are they all boys or girls or a mix?
I have 3 children. My eldest is a daughter, and then I have 2 boys. Yeah, so they keep me busy. My daughter's just started high school here.
Oh, congratulations. Because I started to think that you might be a mother towards the middle of the book, maybe towards
Yep.
a third of the way through, because there's a lot of morals and ethics that you had to weigh in on,
Yep.
or that the characters weighed in on. So I
Yep.
think it's a great book for like 5th through 8th grade. Maybe,
Yeah,
or
so I asked
actually
all
loved
of
it
my
as an
children.
adult.
Well, I asked all of my children all of the concepts in that world, and just played hypotheticals. It's like, okay, if this person is going to do, like, there's a scene in there where Eli comes across a man who is homeless and he's asking for food. He's asking for something, and he couldn't give him anything because Eli had nothing to give him. And I said to the kids, how would you feel about that? How do you want to change that? And that helped shape their answers, helped shape Eli, and the morals and the ethics kind of just fell in line with that. So it's not that I particularly placed morals and ethics. I just placed the children's reactions and their genuine reactions. Like, I didn't like that scene. I want to change it, and that's where Eli's drive comes from.
Right. And that is the way that it played out. It was, the actors on the stories choosing which way they were going to go. But it was extremely well done, Amanda. It was not
Thank you.
thrown at you. It was just like whispered throughout, which was really good.
Thank you. I have to say my editor was amazing. She fell in love with the book. She's constantly messaging me, "When's book 2 coming?" And it was great just to have someone so invested in my work that I could really push my boundaries and say, "Okay, let's get this done."
Well, book 2 can only be that much better, and I bet people will be excited to get it. Um, and the other thing was how Eli develops a network of friends and keeps them, and the guilt he feels about things that happen to them along the way. That was a
Yeah,
lot for a young person to go through, but life can happen like that.
that's right. Yeah. It's I kind of was looking at so in Australia, we have a lot of people from war-torn areas who come to our local schools and integrate into society. And these children have gone through horrific things. And then, we've got my children who have never even left our home. So, and I was thinking, like, there's so many different ways to do life. There's so many experiences children go through. And I think we sugarcoat that a little bit too much. So I was trying to present through the book a war that children are experiencing through their lives. But it's not a real war like in Afghanistan or Iraq. It's a mythical war. And how are these children affected? How do they live a life? How do they go through everything that they go through and still be the person that they're meant to be? So I was really playing on that idea and really analyzing that idea. But, at the end of the day, they're still children, and the relationships that they go through are influenced by the experiences. So Eli's guilt is just a natural thing. Like, he's guilty that he left his war-torn home to go to this prestigious school, but it doesn't mean he's going to end up making the same mistakes that he would at home. So it was kind of like making sure that he had real feelings and nothing was masked over, nothing was pretend, nothing was fake for the sake of the story. Is that he had real feelings and he dealt with them.
Yeah, and he was really trying to help his family.
Yep, that's right, because he's got fantastic drives. He's not in it for money or fame or anything like that. He has, what? I see a need, I'm going to fill a need. And how's the best way to do that? So he's a real kid.
Definitely. And I think it challenges young people and anybody who reads it really to just think a little bit more. But I love the whole layout. I love the world that you created. Are there any parts of the world that you travel to or from Australia that are incorporated into the layout of the world you created here?
So I'm in Sydney, Australia, and I'm at the bottom of the Blue Mountains, and I'm on the Indigenous land of the Darug people. So in Australia, we have our Indigenous people, Aboriginals, and then we have our non-Indigenous people like myself. And so I've always learned about our Indigenous heritage and the crimes of the past. And I'm really conscious of that, bringing forward like some reconciliation and some peace, because it still plays in our society as a subtle effect. But for the Indigenous people, really struggle. So that really makes me, because I'm very fascinated about the human experience and perception and just things that are really going on in our day-to-day society, even though sometimes we might come across as Stepford wives and that we've got this perfect shimmer. I'm very, very conscious that that's not the case. So that really played into this story as well, because that's a day-to-day thing that I'm conscious of and I'm aware of and I activate. And that's part of, I think, the Australian experience. But as for traveling, we don't get around much. I'm hoping that will change our post-COVID world. I would love to see the world. I would love to just own a backpack full of stuff and just walk around the world. Yeah. I couldn't carry my books, though.
There you go. Well, hopefully after COVID, maybe another year you can travel. I know I miss
That's
it.
right. It's a plan.
Well, did the Blue Mount or I'm sorry, was it the
The
Blue
Blue
Ridge?
Mountains.
The Blue Mountains, did they figure into the
Yeah.
story in any way? Did it have anything to do with the mines?
Oh, maybe I never put two and two together. I recently finished up with a job where I was delivering through the Blue Mountains. So I'm very lucky to know all of the different little secret passages. And the Blue Mountains is quite magical. It's a very spiritual place. The people are just absolutely lovely. And so while I was driving, because it's quite a long drive to the top of the mountain and back, I had the story like ticking over my mind. So maybe it did play into that. I'll have to look into that now. I have to do a reread. They are very beautiful and very blue. Yes.
Why are they blue?
Because the eucalyptus gives out a oil to the air. It's like a mist, and in the distance they make them look blue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It is. It's very funny because when I was a child, we traveled to Germany, and the mountains are just absolutely massive. And my brother and I were like, "Oh my god, they're so green!" And everybody was like, "Mountains are green," because we're used to them being blue.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. So you grew up around the Blue Mountains then?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's always been at the bottom, so we're on the outskirts of Sydney.
How long does it take to get to the top?
An hour, and it's also an hour to Sydney, so we're like right in the middle.
Is that driving?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So what other places are around you that might have influenced your work that you know about or that you may not know about?
Um, so I'm much more in my imagination. So I love reading like really, really old books and old stories, and just taking a lot of influences in places like that. When I was a child, we traveled through Europe in a very old van, and we slept in campsites. But my parents, we never went to capital cities, so we always did the back routes, and we always found really unusual things. And so I kind of feel like that played into the towns of find unusual things. It's not about the city and the running around and doing this and doing that. It's about, getting away from the main part and finding out what's going on in community life. And I've always been fascinated with that. So I feel like that's probably why I'm so a community minded person, and why Eli is, because it just kind of naturally rolled into him.
Are you a full-time writer or what do you do during the day besides being a
So
mom and a wife?
yeah. Well, luckily my children are all at school now, so I have buckled down to do full-time writing. Last year I started hypnosis work, so I've been just trying to like really push my boundaries about life and perception. I used to be a mental health worker, so I just love helping people and getting out into the community, doing what I can. And yeah, so with writing comes first, and then exploring what our world has to offer comes second.
Oh, your kids must like that.
They love it. My husband thinks he's the cool one, but the kids are like, no, mom's cool.
What kind of family day trips do you take that might play into the story?
So we've just brought little canoes. So they're individual little canoes, and we're just trying to find all the little river systems in our area. Because they're surrounded by bush, you can't really access them through the bush because it's just too thick and it's too dangerous with the wildlife that we have. So we brought canoes, and we're just traveling up river streams, and it's like entering a magical world. There's cliff faces on the side, kangaroos and emus everywhere, because we're getting to pockets that, civilization just doesn't reach. So it's quite fascinating to go up the river systems.
That is fascinating. And I think it fits into the story between the wizarding world the desert that Eli comes from, the mountains and the mining that took place, and then that whole outskirt of the wizarding community that they go to school at, and where it all suddenly expands going through a door. I can imagine that must be what your area is like, because you have those small rivers, you have the blue mountains, and you have the bush. What's the bush like? Like, why is it so dangerous
Um,
to still go in there?
well, for us, we have some of the world's deadliest snakes.
Ooh.
So yeah, and my child got bitten by one year, and we just didn't want to repeat that, so we avoid. um, and that's just life in Australia. You just don't go out in the peak of summer. But the rest of the year is fine. And it's very dense, so it's like a normal forest for you guys, except a lot of undergrowth that doesn't clear, and that's where you get all of the animals.
Oh, I think that your area really probably plays a role on this then, because
It does.
it's so well laid out, and it's an exciting story, and it is an adventure, and it has a lot to do with family,
Yes,
and
yeah.
those family ties that are important, and then just uncovering things that you never wanted to know, but explains so much more about your parents, who they were, what they did, why they made the choices they did. But the way that it just like all played out, it was like, these things will get told to you as you need them.
That's right. It's I'm not a fan of the info dump, and I feel like the info dumps are always perfect for the author themselves, because you've got to tell yourself the story first. But for the reader doesn't need to know everything, and so weaving it in a way that is just taking lots of little threads and weaving them together, you can have that massive reveal where everything goes, oh, now that makes sense. So that's the type of writer that I am. My drafts are full of info dumps, and then I got to pare it back and pare it back.
Oh, it was really wonderful. What was your favorite part about creating it? Is there any research involved?
So I tend to research mental health and things like that, and what goes on in our world that people are just not aware of. The day-to-day things. And so I do a lot of extensive research, but nothing that kind of goes, well, this means that, and it's not historical fantasy. It's pretty much I cultivate my mind and then see what pops out at the end. So I have probably unconventional research. So yeah, I think with the editor, she really pushed those bits and pieces and clicked everything together. So I had quite an extensive land, but then she questioned me, where the food coming from, and where's this coming from, and so her influences was to make sure that everything kind of made out that it was all clicking together correctly. So I have to say hats off to Amy.
How about 500 pages? How long did it take to write?
It was actually longer. We cut 20,000 words out of it, but we couldn't cut it down any longer. So I have decided that I cannot write small books. When I originally came up with this book, I thought, yes, I'm going to do it in 30,000 words. No, it's 115,000. It's massive. And I don't think book 2 will be smaller. I just can't see it happening.
Well, I think your readers will really enjoy that, because it's just a lot more to sit into. And another really good thing that you did was the shorter chapters.
Yes.
You gave me room to feel like, oh, it's okay, I can take a break. I'm not going to miss anything. Because when you're in the middle of a chapter and it's massive and you're like, I don't want to take a break. I only 1 more hour. I'll finish it. And you read 10 more after it. At least they were short enough that I felt like I could take some breaks. I was up a couple late nights, so.
Yeah. Well, that's good news. Well, yeah, look, I love massive long chapters, but I was conscious that children would read this. So, yeah, I kept them between 800 words and 3,000 words. So it's like a practical chapter. Some are longer, some are shorter. But yeah, children are reading this. So if they look and there's like too many pages, they'll put it down. Like
I
I've
know,
watched my
but
children read
for our serial
experiences.
readers, sorry to interrupt, but for the serial
No, you're right.
readers, we just want to know that it's okay to take a break, which made
Yes.
this okay because I know that I wasn't going to miss anything because it was going to change
Yeah.
to something or somebody else's experiences. So
Yeah.
weird, but it really made
Yeah.
I was like, I really appreciate these chapters. Like,
Oh, thank you.
it was just such a big
Yeah.
deal because I didn't want to miss any of the action. And literally after 4 o'clock night, I'm like, I can't miss the action tomorrow. I have to go to work, you know? So
4 o'clock, that's commitment.
it was just so good. I really enjoyed it. Are any of your
Oh, thank you
kids
so
part of
much.
his personality? Or is he a mix match of all your kids?
He's a mixed match. He definitely is, and then he's something completely different at the same time. Because I don't model any of my characters on real people. I feel like we come to the cut short, or we assume that we know that person to then model them on. So yeah, he's a bit of everything, and then something completely different at the same time.
Wow. And when did this book come out? Just recently?
That came out, yeah, in September 2020.
Ooh, so when is book 2 going to be available?
Oh, look, I'm really hoping September 2021. But we'll just have to see. I can't guarantee. I don't want to cut the writing process short or come up just to meet the deadline, because I think I'll underdo the book if I do that. So once the book is 100% ready and happy, I will set a date.
That's not fair. We're really concerned about him right now, and we want to know what
I know.
happens next.
I will promise you that when the book finishes in book 1, it starts exactly at that point in book 2.
Oh, really?
So that's my hint.
Oh,
Yes.
that's good.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what happens next. And I don't know how you thought of all these creatures that were in there. They were really fantastic.
Oh, I paired it right back. So you just wait for the next couple of books.
Oh, like those dragons could be like your snakes.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's right. That's right. Because they are massive snakes.
Ooh. Oh, well, I'm looking forward to reading the next one. And thank you so much for sharing so much about what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Until next time, keep asking questions. And if you want to dive into a wizarding world filled with mystery, suspense, and action, Amanda Warne won't let you down with The Reluctant Wizard. We'll see you soon.